So Hilton, thank you so much for joining us on the Profitability Playbook podcast. And the podcast basically aims to educate and inspire people by sharing real life stories of financial successes and failures, turning points from people across various backgrounds. So we're hoping that we're able to simplify things for entrepreneurs, for new entrepreneurs, for old entrepreneurs going through difficulties. So Hilton, thank you. Welcome.
It's a pleasure.
I'm going to introduce you in a very short way. I'm going to say Hilton Roos, the engineer, the skydiver, the entrepreneur, the dad, the kite surfer. What can you add to that, Hilton?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I do like a little bit of adventure sports. So skydiving I did for a long time, but not been involved in that. Currently, I do a bit of surfing and kiting to keep myself sane. Living in Cape Town is an awesome spot to be. So also just enjoying walks on the beach with my dogs and with the families.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Engineer by I would say degree, but I must say after getting my PR Eng, I don't think that I've done much more kind of like real technical engineering work. So after that, I moved into the project space, and that's where I actually started to build my career.
It's quite amazing how many people study something and then they don't become that, in the box. Like me, I was never like an accountant.
Yeah, I think it gives you, I think studying is a little bit like, for me, what I got out of engineering is just perhaps I would say the way that you think, problem solving, rational thinking, first principles, it's a very systematic way of thinking and approaching things. So that's I suppose why I've become such a process person, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm like always involved with the quality processes and this process and that process, and it's helped you a lot. So the world is changing. You study one thing now, and then in 5 years there's so many other stuff that you can do.
Yeah, there's so many more opportunities now. But Hilton, if I had to ask you the question, so talking about finance in specifics, when did finance first become significant in your life? Can you remember a time in your life, you may have been 3 years old buying a Chappie's bubble gum on the beach, but can you remember one of the first times in your life when you remember finance, or maybe when it became significant in your life? Has it become significant in your life recently in the last 3 years?
So that's a very wide question. Let me try and so like in terms of finance is a bit about personal finance and business finance. I think in terms of personal finance, I was very fortunate enough. I got a bursary after school. So I went studying, and I was fortunate enough to get quite a good job afterwards. And, as an engineer, you were actually in quite a good position. Not married, life is good, So for a long time, I think there was not any kind of like financial pressures or stresses, I think, for me. So that's, and I think even when we started the company and the business, like I mentioned to you previously, is that we were not really that focused in terms of the finances. We knew kind of like, we were making more than what we were spending every month. And like finances for us was just a thing that we do like maybe once a year, where we sit and check and like get our accountants to give us some accounts and try and explain things to us. But, in terms of personal finance, I could remember one time being broke because we did a lot of traveling, and, I just bought a house and had a bond and all that type of stuff, and not planning and organizing and checking what's going on. Suddenly you put your card in and suddenly there's no money. So, I could remember when that happened and the embarrassment of it, because it was luckily close to the end of the month, and I had to go, like, I think it was about 4 days, like living off I had like 20 rands or something. And I was too proud to go and ask for my, for help. So I think that just kind of like reminded me that money is a bit like fuel in your tank. You either have it, and then there's some point where you don't. And when you don't, everything stops. It was a big realization to see how that happens. So kind of like it forced me to really start okay, just looking a little bit at my personal finances, finding out what's happening in my bank accounts, being a little bit more aware in terms of what I'm spending, and be a little bit.
It's the same for business, isn't it? I mean, it's the same in your business, cash flow.
Absolutely. So I think for us in the business, it also, we were always like very, coming from engineering, me, I'm purpose driven. Our mission is more to just bring value to the client. That's all we want to do, is we just want to be recognized for being a really good supplier and providing really good services. And, the money was not always, and the finances wasn't always that higher priority for us. I mean, I think that with our business, I think having grown to a point where where our turnover has increased, we started to realize, like, we're in a company where we were still a relatively small kind of like core team managing the business, and we had absolutely no accounting expertise in our company, and we were doing like 30-40 million rand turnover at that point, and next year projecting like nearly 100 million. So we were really trying to think, we need some help here now, because this is really, we need to start managing the ship, because it's getting quite important, and as profitable as it may be, also the cash flow becomes so critical as you grow. So I think when we started seeing I mean, for long our business was just coasting.
Yeah.
And we had a slow growth of about, I would say, 20% per year on average for about, I mean, at least about 12, 13 years. And then we got a few good contracts that really started increasing our turnover and our size of the organization. And that's when, I think, through advice from friends and having conversations, we got introduced to this idea to get some support in terms of, you might not need to have to full-time employ like a person like a chief financial officer, but there are organizations and service providers that can provide that service on a part-time basis. And for us, I think getting that involved, and I mean, you were now a part of that. I'm not too sure whether I can mention that. So I think for us, Andrew, at that point, getting you involved and just a completely different view in terms of how we structure our accounts. And because for us, our management accounts were always like this thing that our consultants did for us. And it's just a piece of paper that we put on, and when we tender, we do that. We didn't get much. Compliance. We didn't get much value out of it. We didn't really know all the kind of like the mechanics and the margins and everything, gross margins and net margins is what you've introduced for us. So that, and I mean, these are basic principles, but I mean, we were just not, we had no finance people in our company. So we just gave it to the service providers and said, just make sure that we got our books done. So that for us was is quite an interesting shift in terms of, okay, well, that the way that we started structuring our accounts was suddenly becoming much more meaningful and insightful and a useful tool for us in terms of, okay, well, now at least we know what is our gross. Now at least we know what is this. We know where to account certain stuff, expenses that we bring into our company, like, consultants, sub-suppliers, employees, operational employees, productive staff, non-productive staff. And really, it's created a very good structure for us to kind of like now to start set as a baseline and look at our future planning like we've done. And
are you not becoming, have you not found that? Because I find in business, and I meet with business owners almost every day, and I look at their financial statements and I ask them, what does this mean to you? And to them, it's like compliance. This is what we have to do, isn't it? We have to have financial statements. And I say to them, they're looking in the rearview mirror. They're always looking in the rearview mirror. They're seeing how well they did last month or last year, but there's no purpose. There's no purposeful, I want to say, becoming more deliberate in your business to grow your business and to do better, rather than looking in the rearview mirror and working out of the till like a hairdresser. Because a hairdresser lives out the till. They get somebody in, they cut their hair, they take the cash, they put it in the till, then they need some money, so they take that money out the till and they buy some shampoo or new scissors, and they're always wanting to know how much cash they've got. But as you're saying, Hilton, it's more than that. It's profitability. It's looking forward. It's planning. It's forecasting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So the thing is, you can't change the past. The past is done and dusted. You can only learn from it and accept it, basically, and think about how you can do things differently in future. So the past, you still need that past stuff. But what is important is to look and say, okay, well, is to be able to really measure how are we doing, where are we at, and then to say, okay, well, where we are at, looking into the future now. Now at least we've got some basis to plan from. Like, for example, we've looked at the aspects of, what type of, in our business, what is the percentage of, like, say, for example, maybe just staffing solutions we do versus consulting versus services, maybe versus some training. And all of these packages have got different type of margins that we could do. So staffing, high volume, low margin, services and consulting, but much less volume, but much higher margin. So, and currently that is a very small percentage. And if we project into the future and look and say, okay, well, what do we need to be able to kind of like enhance maybe our service and consulting? You can actually now see, based on your projected margins, how will that impact the profitability of your business? And it sets real targets that has got some form of, I would say, basis, thought, and realisticness behind it, because it's no point to set a flippant completely unrealistic target, because then you're just going to depress yourself into the future. So you have to do it in like little chunks. It is to structure it in such a way that you can make meaning out of it, and that it can help you now to look forward into your business and to do it's not just the yearly forecast. Are we talking about this 3 to 5 year forecasting for the company we want to go?
So you have an objective, you have a mission, you have a vision, you know what turnover you want to drive, you know what product mixes you want to drive, you know what you want to do.
And if you look at all our goals, Andrew, all our goals essentially, look at where we are currently. A key aspect now for us is our BE compliance. What drives BE compliance? How do you really measure it? A lot of those measures comes back to spending, to money. How much did you spend here? How much did you spend there? So there are things that we now need to really take into account in future. I mean, and which, like, for example, we have not potentially considered in the past when we were still perhaps below the threshold and we could just sign an affidavit, but now, so it's important to really also peg your targets, and like for example, now finishing this financial year, to be able to have a good handle on your accounts receivables and your account payables, so that we can manage those targets very, very closely for the year end, because all our BE planning and targets and everything has been geared around, okay, well, we are projecting to now make so much NPAT, our salary and wages can be that much, and those things drive all the kind of, like, I would say, targets that you need to achieve in terms of triple BE. It's and everything else, shareholders, profitability, growth, all those important metrics for a company, you all see it in the numbers, is essentially. Even our, when we look at our just basic stuff, so like ring fencing our electricity costs for environmental, we want to be able to say, okay, well, how much did we spend on electricity, and are we gonna? Well, we have to take into the increases into account, and we'll probably have to rework it back to the kilowatt hours. But we start with the financing in terms of how much did we spend on that, and we want to reduce that cost as well.
But I mean, it goes to show all these things that you're talking about, and there's lots of things happening all the time, and all these things result, as you say, they result in the numbers. They result in what profit we have, what our business is worth, what cash we've got in the bank, our forecast. I mean, all those things result in that. And I think, as an entrepreneur, there's so many things for you to think about. And I think as well as your business grows, I see so many companies going through growing pains. Now, through like for example, C Squared, your business, you've grown exponentially. you're expecting to grow exponentially for the next 3-4 years. So obviously now it's to be careful, because I see so many businesses that go like that, and they start spending a lot because they think they've got cash in the bank, they've got money. But I find that from my experience with you guys, you've been very careful with that, which I think is great, which is fantastic, because you need to keep investing in your business to grow your business. But it all depends on what is that exit plan? How do you, and I'm not asking you this question because it's a bit more confidential than anything else, but for business and any other entrepreneurs, what is your exit plan when it comes to your business? How much do you want to invest? Or do you want to be like the big four? I think a lot of the big four, like professional services firm, they basically liquidate the company every year. It's okay, we've got 200 partners, this is the profit, let's split the profit, take all the money out the company and start fresh again on day one. You can't do that. You've got people to pay. You've got a plan for the future. So, Hilton, I want to ask you the question that if I had to ask you the top 3 things that keeps you awake at night, what are the top 3 things that you would say concern you the most as a business owner?
Yeah, look, I think for us, top 3 things is, as we grow, we are bringing a lot more people. It is, and it's, you're taking some risks. So for me, it is about, are those risks acceptable and being adequately managed? I suppose that's the worry, but what keeps me awake is, unsatisfied client, or a client really not getting the value that they feel that they expect. So that's one thing, and I think that has always been for me like a big thing. Is like, for me, it's really important to make sure that our clients are.
But is that not everything to you? Is that not everything to you, especially being a professional service provider?
Exactly. So I'm worried about reputations. Are our services good enough? Are our people good enough? Are we delivering? So we've got mechanisms in place to measure that. So it's not such a complete unknown, but still,
I mean, you have to manage.
We want to grow, and I suppose also, like, if you want to grow a business, you can't afford to lose customers. You need to keep customers and to get additional customers on. How do you get additional customers on and not neglect your existing customers? So that balance for us is going to be a challenge. We've signed a few more contracts, and we've got a whole new few clients on our books. So I think for us, what's going to be very important is to just manage and make sure that we can really deliver and impress the new clients, but also not neglect the old clients.
I mean, as I say, it's a lot cheaper to grow a current client than to get a new client, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, I mentioned it. Or, as an employee in a company, it's much harder to get rid of an employee in a company than to get rid of a service provider if they're not performing. So a client is actually a worse superior to have than a boss.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
So you have to be really on your toes. And then I think, for us as well, the thing is, it's a worry, but it's the combination of excitement and anxiety linked with strategy. Implementing strategy is basically the belief to spend money now that will give you returns in the future. But now you just see the money being spent, and you have to believe that your strategy is right for the future. I think there's an excitement in terms of the steps that we've now taken. As you are well aware, we are augmenting our permanent staff complement, going from a small team of 7 people now to we're going to want at least about 9-10 more permanent staff in the company. That's a huge overhead to take on, but it is on the belief, and it's a risk, but it is with the belief that we are going to be able to generate the contracts and the work and the opportunities to
took me
kind of like leverage that.
That step change to actually, get into the new phase of your business, to be taken seriously by not just your clients, but by your competitors as well.
Exactly.
And to go back to your qualification, engineers. Do you think engineers are good or bad with finances? You're not talking about you now. I'm talking about engineers in general.
That is very hard for me to say. I've known civil engineers that have started like funds, and well, in fact, my private money is invested with a like a boutique fund that's managed by a ex-civil engineer that has done his MBA and has gone into finances. So I do think, and I also know my cousin, for example, studied engineering, then went on to then studied finance, and he's was hugely successful in Old Mutual, and is also kind of like a portfolio manager for a huge fund at this point. So I think that so I would say generally the capability is there. I think engineers can actually be bigger, because it's a numbers game, and I mean engineers are normally good with numbers, but it's whether engineers are a little bit like, we're also a little bit, well, I'm talking about myself. I was a little bit like in my own little world. The finance wasn't really that important to me, so I think it can be very, although the capability exists, I think it can be very easy for engineers or technical people or even entrepreneurs to get so focused on kind of like the product and what you want to do, and that kind of like neglect the finances, but I suppose if you really believe in what you're doing and you strive for something really good that is not there, then the reward will come.
It should come if you deliberate and you manage it properly, though. That's the trick. And I think you say people that are good with numbers, and everybody always says, "Oh, you're good with maths. You're going to be a good accountant one day." Most accountants I know are terrible with maths. It's because it's where you put the numbers that matters, and what it all means at the end of the day. And I think you're right. I mean, engineers anyone applying their minds can do it. But I think a lot of people don't find it important because they leave it up to their accountant, and the accountant just gives them a report. Like you said earlier, your accountants give you a report every month or every year, and it's like tick. It's compliance.
Exactly. No, exactly. So I mean, I can't speak for anyone else. I mean, I just got my own experience, but really, I'm just thinking, I'm a huge fan of Musk, so maybe his current involvement is a little bit like, but if you look at what he's built and done as a business, I don't think he's driven by money at all. But think about it, like even when he was starting Tesla and those things, the things that were gonna bite him was going to be cash flow, because he needed to if he didn't get those bailouts from NASA and to kind of like help fund SpaceX, they would have crashed. And I read one of his books, and the guy said when they started with Tesla, they built all these amazing cars, but they weren't selling. And at some point he said, "Look, guys, now we all need to get on the phones and start selling these bloody cars because we need to generate." So I do think that there's a tendency to kind of like, for entrepreneurs to really focus, be so passionate about the products, but it is critical to also keep those. I mean, exactly.
So many facets to business, isn't it? I mean, like you say, Elon Musk is a typical like passionate about developing something and designing something and inventing something. But to turn that into a business, you need marketing, sales, business development, finance, HR, all the other things.
And I mean, and I suppose, I think if you consider his approach, he said like they're not doing much marketing. There's no Tesla ads or SpaceX ads that run.
It's because
they just built a brand and a reputation that, it's a fantastic model. I mean, I wish we could get there. It's maybe perhaps something to strive for, because we also want to, like I said, be like a fire and forget type of service provider, where someone's got a problem or a project or something, they must just say, "Look, let's just give it to C-Squared. They'll sort it," but as I think for us, luckily we got, I think I was thinking about it, not when I was thinking about this podcast, but really, Andrew, I mean, if I think of where we were 2 years ago, or when did we engage with you guys? Yeah, you started with us August 2023, and then we had our first strategy planning in March 2024. I mean, it's literally just a year ago. It's completely, it's incredible, the change that and I think for me, what was important was to bring in, you sit here in your business, it's me and my business partner and our little core team here. What was really refreshing is to bring in kind of like, people with knowledge and experience like yourselves, like Rod, to kind of like just ask all the
The
fresh
right questions.
questions and the
Yeah.
challenging questions, and to look at your business differently, and to kind of like and help you see the real model of your business and understand that model, and
Yeah.
then to work towards how can we what do you want to achieve, and to do that level of planning and to have a proper baseline. And it's gone from kind of like just doing the same thing over and over every year to be really more excited and optimistic about, yes, see, this business, we can, if we do the right things, make the right decisions,
Yeah.
it can grow.
Be something
So
proper.
yeah.
If I want to ask you two more questions, Hilton. You've been going for how many years now? 13? No, it's longer than 13.
No, the company was registered in April 2007, but I think we only got our first kind of like contracts towards the start of 2008. So that's about 16 years now, 16, 17 years, yeah.
And it's the last 3 years, right? And you put a lot of hard yards in the first 13, 14 years, like you are now. But I mean, is that not the story of business? If I look at my friend, he's got a cyber crime business, and he's been going for years and years and years. All of a sudden, he signs one or two decent deals, and now all of a sudden he's hiring people, and now it's becoming something. And I equate you to that. I mean, you're doing far better than he is, but it takes time, doesn't it?
You know what? You always like, you're always so. I mean, I, you, I like the fact. Well, I'm what do you call it? I feel complimented the fact that you refer to me as an entrepreneur. But I think entrepreneurs sometimes have got this image of like, starting lots of businesses, quickly growing a company from zero to hero in a very small time, and then selling it, make a lot of money, and then move on to the next thing. So you hear those stories.
Yeah.
And they do happen, but I think that they are more just, it's a little bit like you only always hear of the success stories. I think the reality of building a successful business
Sustainable.
is really, it is finding something that you can commit to and can believe in, and that you can walk with for a long time. Yeah. So like for us, we had our business, and I mean, even in 2016, we had a huge issue where we had a break in contracts. We decided to not retrench our staff and to carry them through because we were committed, but the company lost a lot of money. Huge lesson learned. But so, and that is like nearly 10 years after we started, so you hear all these stories about these successful companies growing, and like, but I think for us, it is exactly that. It is the consistency of just believing and existing and learning and growing and maturing, and and at some point things will, I think at some point you need a little bit of luck, but it's also it's hard work, and you'll get to the point. We had a good break with contracts, and that set us off now, and I think every business's journey is actually different, Andrew, but for us, we are just very fortunate that we stuck it through, and that now it's going. So
I think some people give up too soon. And I mean, I mean, my business has been going for 5 years, and I'm doing all these things to complement it. And 5 years, I haven't made any money yet. It's still not a success. It's a great solution. I know that because a lot of everybody I show my solution to is great. But yeah, I still believe. I still strongly believe. And I think it is that. I mean, believing in I mean, a lot of people have said, why don't you do something else? Why don't you do more consulting work? And I've consciously said, don't want to do much more consulting work because I want to grow what I started. I developed it. But Hilton, if I had to ask you the last question, what would you say to a new entrepreneur or entrepreneur going through struggles? What kind of tips would you give them when it comes to? I mean, I know it's a very very broad question, and that's the point in the question.
Look, I think for me, you know what, Andrew, is if I just look in again, I can first kind of like relate in terms of what has happened, in terms of if I think about key events over the past few, since we started the business, and things that's really, really helped us. So, and again, this is very context specific, so we do engineering, construction, project management. Our clients are predominantly state-owned companies. So for us, what was very important was, first of all, like very early in the company, we got our ISO certification to comply with 9001. So what does that mean? It means that your business has got a standard set of processes that focus specifically on delivering customer satisfaction. That is it. Quality is about having a happy customer, satisfied customer. So and I mean that certification has become it became a little bit of a distinguishing factor for us in terms of our competitors, because a lot of those smaller companies that were just doing work didn't have that. And then I think the other really lucky point for me in terms of turning point was run and manage a business can become very lonely at the top there at some point. And having made the decision to bring on a partner, and this partner was Mashidu, black female partner, employed in the company for 5 years at the time. When we started the discussion, she was already, she was willing to buy in and to take a 51% stake in the company, and had a real, I would say, a kind of like the real intent of a transformed company. So I think with us becoming a 51% black woman-owned company, has really, really helped us in terms of our PE and in getting public work. In the past, it was. I'm not sure whether that is going to be as beneficial in modern days, because I think that there's been a little bit more movement away now from just saying like you have to be an EMU or QC to get this contract. There's other qualifying factors. But for me, but the thing here is it was not just about transforming the business. It was actually selecting a really good business partner. I can highly recommend it, because on your own you only have got your own worldview. Two views are always better than one. So to have a business partner that understands your business, that you can trust, and that you can that you highly competent and can bring value to the business, and can support my weaknesses, and provide strengths where I've got weaknesses. That is, I think it's a very good combination, and I always said at that stage, and it is so funny, I used these exact words to my friends when they said, "But why are you doing this?" I said, "Listen, I'd rather be a 49% shareholder in a 100 million rand company than a 100% shareholder in a 10 million rand company." And that's where we are, so like it is, I think, partnerships.
1+1 is 100 and not 2.
Yeah, it's a little, well, it's not 100, but it's definitely, if it's the right partner, the 1+1 becomes 2.5, if you know what I'm saying, because
but
the rate of your decisions, like for example, there's to have a proper sounding board for decision making, and funny enough, Machine and myself, we pick our battles. Like sometimes and it's very few times that we really have like a hard discussion where we have to push and push and push. Somehow we always kind of like come to a mutual decision, because we both have got the same common goals and interests of the business at heart. And so I would say kind of like, if you are going to, depending in the industry that you're going to be working in our industry, having some level of certification from a quality point to demonstrate that you are, you're serious about having satisfied customers. I think partnerships are, in my case, have been proven to be hugely beneficial. And I also think that, you sometimes always think oh, geez, we need finance, and now we need to employ someone in finance. There's a lot of people and skills and competencies outside there that you can actually contract in, and consultants that can advise you. That's really good. and that's quite affordable, and sometimes I think, where would have we been now if we've made this move maybe a few years earlier?
Yeah. I mean, now they're talking about fractional CFOs and fractional CEOs and fractional CMOs and all these fractional people. I think the challenge there is not to take on too much.
And just a word of caution for anyone who thinks of starting their business. There is this image out there that if I'm a business owner and he's an entrepreneur. Yeah, it's kind of like a very glamorous. It's very glamorous within the kind of like normal social circles. But yes, it is really hard to start a company, and it takes a lot of work, and it's a lot of administration, and you're gonna have to do everything in the beginning yourself, and it is not as glamorous and and perhaps even profitable as what you would originally anticipated it to be. Really, it needs a lot of dedication and a lot of focus. And, like we pulled through. There's a few times when I thought like, yes, aren't we flogging a dead horse here? Should we not just, like you say, liquidate the company? We could do consulting work. It will be much less stressful, much less people to manage. And, but I do think if you can get it right and you get your business model right, I mean, South Africa's got such a huge potential. There's such a shortage of skills, and so there's a huge market to employ and to develop. And I think we've got great opportunities. Our economy has been dead for a while. We're just waiting for it to take off, and then I think there's going to be huge opportunities. So now is actually the time to consider and to get going. But yes, you have to get your expectations and unless you're very lucky, very smart, or like another Elon Musk or something like that, you're in for a hard run in the beginning. If you believe and push through, who knows?
As you say, there's so many. They're few and far between, but those are the ones you hear about. The ones, the one-hit wonders, and the guys that are like building companies, and next minute they're driving Ferraris.
Just the tip of the iceberg. You just hear of those because they're so. I think everyone's so jealous about it. That's why it's out there. But I do. But I mean, it is. There are unfortunately also a lot of statistics that support that. A lot of businesses fail within the first 5 years of its existence. So I mean, if you can push now through, you already through the first, I would say, statistical barrier. You know what I'm saying?
The thing is, I'm doing other things to supplement my life, which is good because I can do that and I'm enjoying it as well. I'm doing a whole lot of different things, so that's fun. Are you having fun, Hilton?
You know what? 2 years ago, I was actually just very, well, actually, I felt like it's a little bit directionless, but I must say now having set clear goals, understanding a little bit the business more, understand the opportunities that's on the table, understanding at least the risks that we're taking, and we're acting with intent. And sure, there's some uncertainty still, but I think it is an incredibly exciting time for us. So I've gone from being like just normal day to day to actually being really excited about the company. And there's exciting stuff that we're doing. Putting in ERPs and building the company, as a system that can operate, that is, it's extremely.
It takes a lot of effort to get your company valued at that 6, 7, 8 times your net profit. To have that business in a box so that you can throw it around and offload it and get value for it. Hilton, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the answers and for the questions and for the insights. It was good to have you.
Thank you very much. No, I enjoyed the discussion, Andrew. Thank you very much.